What's up everybody, it's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hole Audio and Visual, and we are back with another tutorial for today. And for today's video, I wanted to do something a little bit smaller than we typically do on the channel. However, I do think this is a really good tool to have in your toolkit as a producer or a mixing engineer. And what we're going to be going over today is adding some sidechain compression to a synth track or a synth bus to give that some extra movement and some extra vibe and just make it a little bit wavy and not super boring. This is especially nice for when you have like atmospheric pads or when you have a section that's going to be really stripped down. But we're not focusing on just any sidechain compression. For this video specifically, we'll be focusing on sidechain compression with a ghost trigger. A lot of you have probably heard of sidechain compression. If you haven't, I'll give you a quick explanation real quick before we hop in. It's basically where you put a compressor on a track, so say a synth or a synth bus or a bass, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna send that compressor to an actual trigger, so say a kick drum, and basically whenever that kick drum hits as the trigger, it's gonna send a signal to that compressor to stomp down on whatever sound you have it on. Basically, it'll create this nice swell and ducking, where if you have the synth sidechain to the kick, every time the kick hits, the synth will swell, and you can kind of tighten that up with your attack and your decay and your release, and you can kind of set your ratios and all of your thresholds accordingly to your song. But it's a really good way to add some movement in a track, especially when you have dense arrangements. However, what we're going to be doing today is kind of the opposite, where I want a sparse arrangement. So I don't want a kick drum and I don't really want any crazy percussion that kind of would trigger the sidechain. So what we're going to be doing is working on triggering it with a ghost source, and it's probably much more simple than you think. So without further ado, let's actually hop into Cubase and I'll show you exactly how I set up my sidechain compression, how I set up a ghost sidechain trigger, and we'll just kind of talk about why it's beneficial, especially in a track like this one. All right, so we're in the DAW. What we're going to do first is just take a listen to what we have. It's just a few pads. Again, they're super ambient. Just some big pads with a nice filter kind of opening up, and then we go into the verse. So as you can see, I like the chords. I think that they kind of lend themselves to a really good melody, and I really don't want a lot happening. You'll see right here we'll have some drums come in. But for right now, I don't want a kick. However, it just feels a little boring, and maybe the idea of adding some kind of synth that has a lot of rhythm is not what we want to do. So basically all we're going to do right now is let's create a new track. So this is going to be called, we're going to call this sidechain trigger. And for right now, I am just going to have this going to the drums, kind of as you would with a normal kick, so y'all can kind of hear what we're going to do. And then I'll kind of show you how to set it up as a ghost send. So we're just going to pull in a kick right here. The kick doesn't really matter. I mean, sometimes, you know, however long the waveform is will matter for how much it's going to trigger. So don't have anything like an 808 or something like that. But I mean, you really could just come down and chop this as quick as you really want. It doesn't matter. For right now, we're going to leave it right here, just because when I was trying it sounded totally fine. So we have a kick. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write in a little pattern right here. All right, now I've just copied and pasted that to be a pattern that we want, so I'll kind of let you guys hear what it sounds like with the kick in there. And so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to set up this sidechain. So I'm going to go right here and I'm just going to add in a compressor. Pretty much any compressor that has a sidechain output will work. A lot of the time in Cubase, I'll just use kind of whatever one they have. And then I'm going to send this to the sidechain trigger. So this means that this compressor is now going to be triggered by whatever you send as an input. So I've got the trigger named appropriately, just coming right in here. And then we can kind of mess around. And I am going to leave the kick on for now, just so we can kind of hear how it'll work in conjunction. I'm going to turn auto makeup off because I don't want it to add a ton of gain. So as you can see right now, we've got that ducking. Basically, all we want to do right now is just set that release so we can kind of see how quick that ducking is going to come back. So the release will mean that basically it's only going to compress it while this actual waveform is happening, and then you have the release. So if you have the release set super high, it'll take forever for that synth to actually swing back in and get to full volume. But if you have it super short, so we'll set it somewhere right here around like 150, and then you have the attack too that you can kind of drive up. So I don't typically mess with the attack too much on sidechaining. Typically the release will get me everywhere I want to go. And then you have your threshold and your kind of ratio over here. So I'll normally do a pretty hard ratio for sidechaining just because I want it to be dramatic, and I can kind of just blend that into taste with the synth section right over here. So right now we'll leave this right here. I love the movement that it's adding, but I hate the sound of that kick right now. I really don't want it at all. So literally all you have to do is just send this to no bus, or you can send it to a bus that's muted. And the way that Cubase will kind of figure it out, and pretty much any other DAW, is that it still hears the sound inside the system. However, it's just not going to give you a bus to route that out through. And there you go. That's basically all you have to do to set up a sidechain with a ghost input. And then it's really all just about kind of finessing this. So maybe we'll loosen this up a little bit. And maybe we'll bring down this level. This is basically how much that kick is going to duck whatever it's being sent to. So right now that synth bus. Then we can drag that into the verse. Let's even drag it to where we have this drums over here. Part of the fun with having something set up like a silent trigger is that you can come in here and where you have this kick, you know, hitting here, here, here. If you were just to sidechain to that normal kick, it would only happen there, but like we have this hitting right here, we have this hitting right here, and it just kind of adds this nice little bit of backbeat, this right here, and so you'll kind of hear all together. Versus if we pull it off, it's kind of just really bland and generic and a little boring. And to me, this is just such a good way to add clean movement where you're not really going to clutter up that arrangement. You're not adding a bunch of stuff that you really don't want in there, especially you don't want audible. And this to me is just a really cool way to kind of do whatever rhythm you want on whatever kind of synth you have. And you can really just customize this however you want. So you could even come down and you could do something like that. And let's go here and let's kind of set this release a bit faster and the knee a bit harder. So I mean, that doesn't sound good because it just doesn't really go with what's happening. However, you can see that the options really do become kind of endless for doing stuff like this. And you can kind of set up these sidechain triggers to do whatever. So if you have, you know, a synth or a bass or a vocal, or you have like a hi-hat that you want to kind of duck under the snare, this is just a really good way to kind of create some extra space and create some extra movement on that back end. That way everything isn't just kind of there all the time. And there you have it. As you can see, sidechain compression is a really, really good way to just add a little bit of extra movement in your tracks, especially if you don't want something audibly triggering that synth or that bass to duck. It's just nice to have a little bit of extra flexibility. Also, you could kind of see in this song where we had the kick doing one pattern and the synth was ducking on a different pattern. It just creates this nice little syncopation, and it creates its own little backbeat without having to add a ton of extra percussion or even really kind of rhythmic synths. So this is perfect for when you're doing atmospheric pop or dark pop or something like a verse, and you can kind of use this toolkit in something like a chorus or a drop with either a ghost trigger or just a traditional, you know, kick or snare or vocal. You could even sidechain your vocal delays to your actual main vocal. So definitely use some of these tips and kind of get creative with it, but hopefully this is something that you can use in your arsenal to make sure that you're just keeping your track as clean as possible, but you're gonna add in a little bit of flavor so it doesn't feel stale like you just have a, you know, 3-minute droning pad. So if you have any questions, please let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you want to see next time. If you want more stuff, you can check out our channel, or you can go to our website, makepopmusic.com. We sell samples, presets, courses. We have blog posts on there. You can come to the Facebook community and hang out, ask any questions in there. But that's going to do it for this video. We will see you guys next week, and I hope you all stay safe and do well. Much love, everybody. Peace out. Even though it kills me, I don't want to wait if what's done